Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? All right, Monterey Jazz Festival. How are we feeling? So here's the rundown. I've chosen about 3 or 4 tracks with each of you in mind. Well, actually all of them have sent me one track in mind, something that sticks out to them as special. And from there, I thought, what else would go nicely with this? What's some other complementary dishes for this meal? And I thought we would just kind of jump into things, maybe to feature each one of them per segment. So we're going to kind of create 3 different episodes here. And I think the first one is going to feature Miss Lakecia Benjamin. And the track that she chose, yeah, Lakecia. The track that Lakecia chose is from 1997, something that is, I think, arguably a sort of defining moment in the music. It sort of gave a blueprint for a lot of cats to follow, right? And this album in particular, and this track definitely demonstrates the vibe. So we're going to start with a track from Kenny Garrett's songbook. This is called 2 Down, 1 Across. Here we go. Fade out, fade out, fade out. I hate to do it, gotta do it. There you go, 2 down, 1 across.
Yeah.
Lakecia, tell me about it. What made you choose that? What are you hearing?
Oh my God. I got excited just listening to it. I think as an alto player, there hasn't been a time that I've been alive that Kenny Garrett hasn't been redefining the way the alto is played. So for me, in that particular time period, all instrumentalists, we were trying to dig to a deeper place, and I feel like him, Tane, especially Kenny Kirkland, started, I guess, different ways you can go harmonically, but also, Kenny Garrett's sense of rhythm he doesn't rely on the rhythm section to set the tone. I always feel like a lot of times horn players rely on the rhythm section to kind of create this carpet, and we ride on top of that. We don't contribute time-wise. So if the drummer does something off or something, we're relying on them to do it. And I think the first time I heard Kenny Garrett, I realized, Kenny Garrett and maybe Maceo, that it's actually my job to define where we are in the song, where we're going, and if I allow myself to do that, then I have the same freedom they do to move around in a different way, and then we can interact versus relying on someone just to be a kind of pad for me.
Yes, I love that. I think that's well said, preach. Yeah, at some point in these listening spaces, I always turn to the hungry students and say, so all my hungry students out there, next time you play with one another, consider what Lakecia's saying, and not just the drummer on the bandstand is responsible for that time, for that feel, that propulsion, right, that engine that we all have to be really locked into the groove and displaying that. Yeah, I think that you're right. That definitely stands out, almost more than anything else. It's like everybody's so swinging on that. Yeah,
and his sense of space. I found that he finds a way to be intent with the space. He may go bum bum bum. He waits for people. It's almost like call and response. He waits for them to answer in a way. And I've really seen him drive a drummer into a frenzy, playing minimal notes. Down. They're like, durr. He's like, down. And I'm like, wow, he's figured out a way here.
It's true.
To really inspire a shout.
Kenny Garrett and drummers have a particular relationship, right? I mean, drummers and bass players always got that thing. Like something about Kenny and the drummers. They always come off stage sweating and go, geez, yeah. Sweat. What about y'all? You hear anything you want to contribute on just that track and what you heard and what you feel?
I mean, it's what you said. You're responsible for the time also as a horn player. I have a great story where the great Miguel Zenon, we were doing this, I guess it was a concoction of musicians. We hadn't all played together before. And we were doing a concert, and we were just playing good old blues, and everybody was getting a little fancy. The time was getting a little crazy with the rhythm section, and Miguel was just realized, like, this is off. Let me assert myself a certain kind of way. And the way he just played with such conviction, it just brought everyone together. Everyone, not me, not the drummer, not the piano player. We were like, oh, whoa, okay, let's make sure we, so the responsibility of all involved, not just the rhythm section, to have like that, time together, is serious.
Yeah, dig.
Well, I appreciate what Lakecia said very much, and I'm glad she said it. Because I'm constantly saying to the young musicians who are not in the rhythm section to think about how they can swing the rhythm section instead of vice versa. And so I'm trying to instill that into the young horn players and soloists. But one thing I'll add is that I had a chance early on from playing with leaders, band leaders who personified having the time and a sense of the groove and the time without needing the rhythm section. And by that I mean people like Clark Terry, Sonny Rollins, James Moody, people like that. I was able to see early on how sometimes they are actually pulling me along in terms of time and helping me develop a sense of how they sense and feel the pulse. So yeah, those are three names right away that just come to mind that definitely did not need rhythm sections.
Right. Yeah, dig that.
And Lewis, I have a funny story about Clark Terry. That was actually the first person that gave me a gig. And he called me up, hey, can I speak to Benjamin? So I hung up. I was like, what? Called back, don't hang up on me again. And he was saying he was starting a group of young people, and he wanted me to come audition. And he asked me if I lived in New York, if I knew where Jersey was. I said, no, I have no idea. He gave me an address. He said, write this down. He said, you got 1 hour to get here. So I called a gypsy cab, went down there. His wife opened the door. She's like, oh, he's down in the basement. I was like, oh, I don't go in basement. She said, you going down there today? So I kind of went down there like hesitating, like looking down. And he said, come on, girl. And he had some music on his stand. He said, take out your horn and play this music. I took out my horn as fast as I could, looked at the music. I said, you want me just to play? He said, yeah, just play it. So I looked at it, and I said, then something clicked in me. I said, want to count me off? He said, yeah, you already got the right idea. And my man, I never heard no, a one, a two. I was like, whoa. I mean, the whole thing, I played 4 bars of this. And he said, all right, stop. You got the gig. Ooh. And I was like, that's it? He's like, you want there to be more? I said, no. So I was just thinking about, it was like a D-flat blues, one of them old bassy things. So after that, I was feeling good. I'm like, okay. And he just started playing a song. I could hear it, so I just started walking the bass line. And we did that for 3 hours in that basement. And I asked him after, you know, my mouth was tired. I was like, what you trying to do? And he said, I just wanted to see your sense of time. And I was like, oh. So it reminded me, now that you mentioned his name, I was like, he had me walking bass lines on the saxophone in this basement while he played, and we would switch off. But he would not stop for like, it felt like 3 hours. It could have been 20 minutes, but it felt like.
That's such a hip story. I'm actually really glad that, yes, take a moment for that. I'm really glad that the first value that we're talking about is the time, is that feel, because I feel like all of the legends, all of these elders, these great musicians, they all kind of put that as priority number one. You know, I think Dizzy Gillespie said, if I could choose between a wrong note or a wrong rhythm, I choose a wrong note every time. You know, you could play the right note, but if it doesn't feel good, you're completely off, right? So that time feel is so important. The other thing that I was hearing in this track, which made me choose the next one, or the next two really, just some snippets of this, is that spirit that they're playing with, that real, like you said, they're striving for something, right? And I think there is, you correct me if I'm wrong, but a real direct connection to that spirit, that striving, that wailing that we heard in John Coltrane. So I thought I would choose 2 tracks from A Love Supreme. Also that sort of starting off a tune, just rolling, right? Out of time, that kind of dee-dee-do, da-la-la-la-la-la-la, just playing, right? And then he plays the line, dee-dee-doo-dee-dee-doo, braku-besh, and we're in the time. I feel like even that is kind of a nod to some of that blueprint that we got from Train. So let's listen to a snippet of Acknowledgement from A Love Supreme and see if you can hear the connection between John Coltrane and Kenny Garrett in this. Here we go with Acknowledgement.
Today's his birthday.
Yeah.
Right. Happy birthday, John Coltrane. I hate to fade it out. It feels blasphemous to do so, but I want to jump right into the other one that's on the same record where, you know, it's a little nod to that tempo that we were at with that Kenny Garrett track. Right, Pursuance. Here we go with Pursuance. We didn't even get to train solo yet, but I mean, you hear right that all that wailing, that energy. I mean, it feels like that track we heard, that Kenny Garrett track, was really a nod to that same energy. The way everybody approaches the music feels like it's just downstream from that same energy. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, what are you hearing in that? What are other things that come to mind just from those two snippets?
I mean, they're both from the urgent school. You know, it's a meter. You know, they just have the cry in their sound. You know, it's almost like they're pleading to get to the next level. You know, doing whatever they have to do, praying, whatever. You know, you can hear that in the sound. Even the vibrato that they both use that, where you just feel like, you know, every time you hear them, you just want to get out of your seat. And it's almost like, I don't want to say it's like church, but it is a shout in a way. And even the delicacy in McCoy's left hand, we tend to think of him as just dropping ones. But if you really listen to his solos when he comps for himself, it is a total call and answer each time, you know. So, like I said, I'm just amazed by the level that they have to leave space for another. They're all doing so much stuff, but there's so much space for things to happen. Like they wait on each other. And it kind of just keeps it's almost like you sitting by the fire and you just keep adding those logs. So it gets a nice simmer, but they just never let go of that yell.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much nuance in that. Just like noticing those things, like the touch. I remember, you know, trying to transcribe like a McCoy voicing. So, oh, okay, it's just these notes. But how come when I play them, they sound nothing like that? You know, and it really comes down to those little things, like the touch that they play with. And you're right that we associate McCoy, we sort of put it into a box of, oh, that's just, that's raw, you know, powerful energy. But there is such a graceful, beautiful touch on the piano as well. Yeah, and the space they leave, that's beautiful points. What else? Y'all hearing anything in there you want to?
Well, you mentioned the gracefulness and the kind of, you can't use the word frantic in relation to it. It's just urgent, the way Lakecia said, because one thing I notice is that it's one thing to listen to the records, it's another thing to hear the musicians right in front of you on stage in person, and it's a whole other thing when you actually go on stage to play with them. And you get different things from each of those stages of your development as a young musician. So when I first played with McCoy, I was expecting this, it was powerful and it was all of those things, but it was so relaxed, which is I wasn't expecting. And I had to almost just kind of take deep breaths and widen my whole view of the beat to play with him. And when first time I saw Elvin, I felt the same thing. You listen to the records and you think how raw the energy is and how much power is behind it. But when you sit right in front of him, it's like watching somebody do Tai Chi. So you start to realize that there's a certain relaxation that goes with the urgency.
Wow.
I don't know. We're not allowed to ask no questions, right?
I mean, to who?
Since I'm always from the school of thought that learning is fundamental, how would you advise somebody to learn to play with that urgency and to learn to play with that, but to be able to sit in the power of it and withstand that and still let it flow? I find myself when I play sometimes, but how can I learn to sit back a little bit in my maturity and get to it?
I think it comes with time.
Oh boy.
Really, it comes with time. And having that mindset, that it's all nuanced. I feel the other word I feel when I hear McCoy, even Elvin, there's nuance to their playing, And the best players are, when you see them play, it seems effortless. It seems effortless when they at their instruments, whatever instrument it is. But I remember playing with the great Mulgrew Miller actually for some years, and I remember being young and like you said, and I said, Mulgrew, I forget exactly how I asked him this, but I was like, I feel like I can play a lot better, more technique, and what do you advise? How do I get better at it? And he was like, you know what? People really love low bass notes, Reuben. Once you work on that and like live in that, and everything else will come as time. That's not as important. Live in the simplicity of what you can do and do that well. That's basically what he was telling me, and I think everything else will come. But I relate with that.
One of the things I would say in response to your question, Lakecia, is that the more an inexperienced or younger musician is able to spend time around these types of experienced musicians, you pick it up. It comes over time. It's not something that's going to just happen quickly. And I remember when I was I was 21 when I joined Betty Carter's group, and she called me kid for 4 years. But she would say, "Kid, I heard you play that last night. Find something else. Next gig. I heard that already. Play something else. Find something else." So she was always, that whole thing of always searching for something new and fresh, and a different take on the same material. And I played the fastest tempos I ever played with her and the slowest tempos I ever played with her. And so she had a real sense of dynamic range. And these experienced players bring that knowledge to the table for the younger musicians to kind of gather that information and digest it. So
that makes sense. Rashid Ali got me like that. When I first met him in the basement, I don't know why everything's in the basement, but I came down there and he was like, "I want you to play as fast as you can." And I was like, "You sure about that?" He's like, "Yeah, playing fast, I'm going." He's taking the solo. I'm like, "Oh yeah." Try to take the head out to get out. He kept doing some kind of weird slick thing with his hi-hats. I couldn't get out the melody. So I was like, "Come on, let me out." Kept playing. After a while, I realized he's not going to stop. And my man kept playing. And eventually, my mouth started to bleed. I was like, "I'm not stopping." Kept playing. And it came to a point where I was like, if I don't stop, I may never play again. So I just took the sax and put it on the floor. And it's almost like he felt I put it on the floor. He got up, went to the clock, and took a towel down. He's like, oh, it's been 45 minutes. This is great. You're in the band. And I said, what were you doing? Are you trying to kill me? And he said, I was waiting for you to finish playing what you know. He said, you've been spending all your time playing everything you know the best you can to impress me. And I just had to wait for you to run out of ideas. Sooner or later, I did. And he said, now I know who you really are, so we can play together. And I was like, this man tried to kill me.
That's a good story.
But it taught me something, you know. When I had my formula, I was like, I'm going to kill it. And he waited until I had nothing else.
You got the best audition stories
know,
I think ever.
Like,
That's two for two.
Yeah.
Golly.
I got some.
That's amazing. I mean, if so much knowledge has just been dropped, and if there's ever an endorsement for go out and see the music, I mean, that's it right there. That point that the music does take on different qualities when you listen to it on the records versus in a room. And then that third perspective that isn't often talked about, actually on the bandstand, you know, it's going to hit you a different way. And I think at the beginning of any sort of like, how do I do this type of question for any young student, the sort of ain't nothing to it but to do it response is there. It's like, you just gotta go. You just gotta go to the basement and see what happens. and the rest will take care of itself.
I made a vow when I become an adult to get out of the basement,
out.
to have a nice first floor
Why is this
that my
music-
students can come to.
This music is always underground. At least that's what they say, you know, but we'll get it to
I
Carnegie
saw
Hall.
your
It's gonna
set
be-
last night. You said this feels like a basement out here.
Oh, yeah, it did kind of feel like it's an outdoor stage, but somehow it felt like a room. It's very hip. Okay, I know we're already, if I'm doing the long timing game, a little pressed for time, but I do want to play one more track because I really love it, and it also sits in this urgency and this spirited, wailing type of tradition, but maybe actually adjacent to Train. Is the great Cannonball Adderley, actually. And this is a record where, I don't know, y'all tell me, but I think Cannonball sounds, he has a different urgency on this record to me than other ones. This is from Cannonball live in person live, a Joe Zawinul composition called Rumpelstiltskin. And you wait long enough, and I think Nat Adderley comes in with the tambourine. I mean, it lifts. You can't help but dance to this one. So here we go with Rumpelstiltskin.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Cannonball Adderley Quintet.
You hate to cut it off. Isn't that so bad? I put that on in my apartment, and I'm like, I just can't help but move around. Somehow different than the usual Cannonball, no? I mean, maybe, I don't know about usual, but there's something special there. Thoughts, feels, what are you hearing?
I mean, you got my actual authentic first reaction, because I've never heard that.
Yeah, dig.
I mean, I guess, yeah, some people relate to Cannonball as always playing, let's say, within a certain harmonic structure. So the fact that he starts it like almost like another universe, and then takes you on this journey to that shout. Yeah, man, you got to give me a copy of that.
Yeah, I got you.
That definitely is a... I don't know how it feels for the audience members, if it feels the same as it does for a musician, but it's inspiring to hear him exploring and say, as a saxophone player, I think, wow, look at all the opportunities I have. Look at all the things I could do. Even listening, you hear the bass and everything responding. Did he have a pedal?
I think so. I mean,
It definitely sounded like an octave
right?
pedal.
This is 1968, so
It sounded like the kind of Eddie Harris pedal, where they're not really around yet, but you put them on the top of your. So it feels good to see people or hear people, even then, exploring something, and here we are decades later, and it still sounds like that.
Yes.
And we're still trying to get where they were exploring for it.
Yeah.
So it's a thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure.
Sounds like a working band.
Right?
Yeah.
Sounds like a band who had a lot of gigs and evolved, you know?
Yeah.
Evolved from what you heard of them playing even maybe a few years before. You know, Sam Jones, everybody's just reaching and staying true to what started the whole group, that the commitment to the groove, commitment to the commitment to everything that they started with, but just moved it forward. That's what I hear with that. I mean,
They definitely sound like they know how to rock a room, right? It's
no
problem.
Keep 'em on the
that band
dance
was known for that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's back to that feeling you get in church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That spirit.